Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ken Guzzo.
And this is Dr. Shelley Stockwell-Nicholas.
And we're about to show you the greatest ever International Hypnosis Federation
HYP-TALKS. Enjoy.
Our next speaker is a woman I have the privilege of hearing speak. I actually met her at a Halloween costume party. I was a blonde and she was a brunette, and we were wearing masks, so we fell in love with each other because we were the Snow White and Rose Red of the costume party. And her name is Ann Archer Butcher, and that was Alden, her beloved, Alden Butcher, who just raised the screen. And Ann wrote a book. And this book became an international bestseller. And when she tells you her story, you'll know why. The book is called Inner Guidance. And if you love what she has to say, you're probably going to want to get a copy. And she only has so many, so I'm just putting you on a fair warning. Ann Archer Butcher, Inner Guidance, Our Divine Right. Please warmly welcome this amazing woman, Ann Archer Butcher.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
I was delighted that Shelley invited me here, but my husband and I have been traveling with this book. It's not what we do for a living, we're producers. So, traveling for 2 years, we never expected it. The book took off. The story I'm going to tell you this morning was one of the reasons. Some surfers actually picked it up and started posting things online from the book, and so it went all over the world. Surfers are all over the world, and I started hearing from people everywhere. The publisher called and said, we got to go into reprint. It was only 2 months out, and we were just stunned. I did get invited to a hypnotherapy conference in Virginia Beach, and I was surprised at that. I didn't know any hypnotherapist, and my book isn't about hypnotherapy, and it's really about spirituality. So I wondered, and I asked the woman who was in charge of that conference, and she said, you know, I went to Amazon asking to show me where we could get more upliftment, and your book binged as #1 on Amazon that day. And she said, so I bought it, read it, loved it, and here you are. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But when Shelley invited me, we'd already been all over the world. We've been to Australia twice, we've been to Asia, we've been all over Canada, both coasts, we've been to Europe, all over the United States. And it was like, ugh. My husband made me promise that we would cut back and not do a lot more trips. But I had said yes to one more, which was Hawaii, and it happened that the date perfectly coincided with the Hawaii trip. So tomorrow morning at the crack of dawn, we fly to Hawaii so I can finish the last talk of the book tour. And it allowed us to come on those dimes from the Hawaiian group. And I was happy to say yes to Shelley and get to be with all of you because I had a blast at that Virginia Beach conference. And I want to acknowledge why it was so lovely. Because you're all giving back. You're all serving. And really, that's the highest consciousness you can truly be in. God is the greatest servant of all life. And you have put yourself in that position to serve others through your work, through your consciousness, through your education and learning and background, and also your inner, intuitive, spiritual side. You're dedicated to being aware of who you are and why you're here and giving your gifts back. And so it's an honor to be with you. It's an interesting thing to tell the story of what happened to me when I began my true spiritual journey. But I was just a little girl in South Carolina raised as a Southern Baptist when it all began. I was not expecting any of this. I was contented and happy, loved God, and would have stayed right where I was if Divine Spirit would have left me alone. But it wouldn't and didn't. And what I discovered was I became a high school teacher, and I had graduated early. I was only 21 years old, and I said a little prayer. Dear God, teach me what to teach them. Teach me truth. Because I was teaching literature and philosophy, and I was only 21 years old. I'd read the philosophy in college so fast I could hardly separate one thing from the next. And so, what did I know? And yet, teaching 17 and 18-year-olds philosophy and literature, they wanted to know, well, what do you believe? What do you believe is truth? And I realized I had not a clue. But I had begun to have quite a few spiritual experiences, and they began with very strong inner guidance. A voice at times, sometimes a dream, sometimes just a nudge or intuition, but I knew that it was guidance and that it was protecting me and leading me and directing me. And my mother, at the death of my father, when I was just 7 years old, she said something to me that was profound. The day my father died, she had said, Anne, how did you know? Because just before the telephone rang, I shook my head to my mother, and I said, it isn't good. And she said, what's wrong? And I said, it's Daddy. And she said, is he gone? And I said, yes. I had heard it in her voice, and this is what it said. Your father is about to leave. His death will bring manifold blessings into your life. Remember, I'm a 7-year-old. I don't know what the word manifold means. It means many and diverse, but I didn't know that. I don't even want the blessings. I just want my beloved father. I don't want the blessings. Keep the blessings. I don't want to hear this voice. His death will bring manifold blessings into your life. It will be years before you fully understand the implications of what is being told to you and are able to integrate it into your life. But you will come to understand and be aware and appreciate it. Like, no, I will never appreciate this. Never, never. Take it back. And the phone rang. And that's how I knew. My father was in building and construction when skyscrapers were new. He was on a project down in Florida. There was a problem on the top. They didn't know what it was. He went up to the top floor, which was not completed, and it was a beam that was flying loose up there. And it picked him up and threw him off the top of the building. He died instantly. That was the beginning of deep mourning and loss, but great spirituality for me. Because the voice became louder and clearer and more intense. And I, of course, was a little angry with the voice. Don't tell me, if you're God, why didn't you keep my father? Why did that have to happen? You do not control all things. You do not. But what you can, you will learn to. And I began to play with divine spirit. I realized I could make the curtains flutter even when there wasn't a breeze. I began to play with the power that I realized I had within me. And one day, still very young, I heard, this is not a game. You must not play with it. I was subdued enough, I sat back. I began to trust the voice again and open my heart. And now, I'm a high school teacher, teaching English and philosophy, and I say a little prayer, knowing I'll receive an answer. Teach me what to teach them. Teach me truth. But here's a key. I didn't just say it at the beginning of classes each morning. I said it at the beginning and end every class. So that as the next group came in, I'm open to their consciousness collectively and truth. And one day, something very interesting happened shortly after I began this process of saying, dear God, teach me what to teach them. Teach me truth. I put my hand to the board to write a quote that I knew well. I'm about to write from Thoreau. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately. I'm teaching American literature. This is an 11th grade class. But I keep my eye on the students because you don't really want to turn your back on them. So I'm kind of writing on the board without looking at them because I know the quote so well. But suddenly I realized my hand has a life of its own. It's writing something on the board that I don't even know what it is. I actually have to stand back and look at it. And I said, write that in your journals, nervously, to my students. And they said, you didn't sign the quote. Who said it? Every day we had a quote. And I said, I'll tell you later. I don't have a clue who said it. The next class, in come the students. I don't erase that, but I have boards on 3 sides of my room and windows on the other. So I go to a different board because I want to leave that there to look at it later. I'm shook on the inside though. My Southern Baptist background gave me absolutely no understanding or awareness to help me appreciate the moment. So next, I go to the other board. I am set on Thoreau. We're going to talk about Thoreau. I put my hand on the board. Now it writes something completely different. Different than what is on this board. And unbeknownst to me, it is perfectly a reflection of the consciousness of that group. Thank you. The next hour, another quote. I have no control of my hand. Now I'm thinking I'd better just stay away from the board. I don't want to write on that board. But it is if now there's a magnetic force. It's sort of like the hypnotherapy we saw last night, where your arm will go up or you'll do all sorts of things. It was like, no, I am my arm, it's going. All I could do was follow it. Follow my arm to the board and let it write. And it wrote and wrote and wrote. It happened all day long. The students were curious. They're a really smart group of kids where I was teaching in the Midwest. They were like, hey, why aren't you signing that? Why aren't you saying who wrote these quotes? And I said, I have my reasons. It was true. I had my reasons. It goes on day after day after day. It goes on week after week. Now my classroom begins to become a mecca. Kids are saying, I don't care if I have another English class, I want to get in that English class. Well, you can't change classes. Well, get rid of my study hall. I'll take 2 English classes, just let me in that class. I don't know why the kids are begging to be in the class, but we have 35, 36 kids already. But it happens to be that on that window side, there's actually a window seat, big, long window seat. So we fill it up with kids. Then we bring in all the chairs we can. It's maximum capacity. 50 kids in a class. And they're still begging to get in. And one of my students came up, a very wise young man who went on to do a lot of inventions and is an engineer, and he walked up to me, just an 11th grade kid at the time, and he said, after class, he said, I know what's going on. And I said, I wish you would tell me. And he said, it's like there's a portal in this classroom, and somehow you are reaching into an inner world library and you're bringing down this truth. And we've experimented with it. I said, we who? What do you mean? And he said, the students, we'll stand outside the class just before we come in and we'll decide on a question and your quote will answer it. And I said, you've been doing that? And they said, yeah. He said, there's something else you should know. We're being quickened. And I said, what does that mean? Back then, we never heard that. What the heck? And he said, it means that if you're a B student in math and we leave your class and you go in and you got a math test, A's. If you're a C student in history, B's, A's. It's happening to everybody. That's why they want in your class. And it's happening to you. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, you're smarter, you're funnier. He said, you are being quickened. And I said, gosh, please don't tell anybody. this between ourselves. And then I decided to write, we didn't have computers. I decided to write to a research librarian that I knew. She wasn't a friend, but she had done some research for me in my master's degree program. And she said she would help me. I said, I need to research some things. Will you help me? She said yes, and I sent her all the quotes. She writes back the old-fashioned way by mail, back then, and sent me back all the quotes, all printed out, with the authors. And I was like, wow, that's so cool, look. It's Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, lost epistles of Plato. I don't know this, I don't know it by heart. What on earth? How am I accessing that? And I realized Greg is right. It does feel like there's a portal of flow right into this classroom, and somehow right here in the middle of Indiana, it is a great spiritual energy source that looks like and is disguised as a cornfield. The school was surrounded by cornfields. It looked like the most normal place in the world, but the energy was unbelievable. And my student, Greg, who caught on early, came one day and he goes, do you know what you're doing to cause this? And I said, the only thing I can think of is I'm asking for truth. It became my mantra, it became my prayer each day. Dear God, teach me truth so that I may teach them truth. It continues day after day after day, month after month, year after year. The school board finally calls me in, they've had enough. They call me in front of all of them. I actually think that they're going to praise me. I'm thinking, wow, I've been doing a great job. Look, my students are all getting smarter. They're passing all their tests at higher levels than anybody else. I'm going to get acknowledged. As a second-year teacher, this is going to be great. I go in, the school board president said to me, Anne, we love you. We want to keep you. Teaching jobs are hard to find. And we've got a really good teacher in you. We want to keep you. So you've got your job. As long as you start sticking to the curriculum. No extracurricular activities. My heart sank. But I loved my job. And this was an area where there was a big teachers' college and university. Teachers were a dime a dozen. I don't want to lose my job. So inside of me, with all my heart, I want to say, okay, and somehow I'm going to discipline myself to do it. And now my mouth has a life of its own. And it says, if you understood what you were asking of me, you would never, ever ask it. You have teachers giving maybe 30% of themselves, maybe less, maybe a little more. I'm giving you 1,000%. I am giving you more than I ever knew that I had to give. And it is positively affecting the students. You perhaps have not noticed it. But I will give you time to consider. Because I will change nothing. And I walked out. I went home and I cried and cried and threw myself over the bed. Mouth, what is wrong with you? Why did you do that? It's like you guys singing and jumping around here last night. Gosh, I should have had better control over my mouth. By now it was summer vacation. I hadn't heard back from the school board. I cried a little every day, thinking, I'm going to have to look for another job. I may even have to leave the state. They're very hard to find here. I don't have the heart for it yet, but I will soon. And about 2 weeks into summer vacation, I get a call. It's the principal. And he says, not even, hello, this is Mr. Cobbs. He said, Anne, what do you want? And I said, What do you mean what I want? Now, inwardly, I know what I want. I want my job. That's all I want. I'll ask for nothing. Just give me my job. But inwardly, I'm hearing, listen, ask him, be aware of the options. I didn't know there were any options, job or no job. Okay, all right. So I said very calmly, what are my options? And he said, you, my dear, can have anything you want. I said, how did we go from do what I tell you or you lose your job to you can have anything you want? And he chuckled and said, well, obviously you haven't heard. He said, you know, the school board president's son just became National Merit Scholar in Science. And I was like, oh, that's incredible. He's the top winner. It's wonderful. He's one of my students. I'm thrilled. And he said, and in the interview, and I'm thinking, oh dear God, he didn't say he was quickened, did he? He said, in the interview, he said, when they asked him, how did you go from being an average student 2 years before to being one of the smartest, brightest, most capable students in the United States? And he said, it was my English teacher. She taught me how to learn. Oh my God, beautiful. And I said, so what are my options? And he said, Anne, you can have lifetime tenure in the state of Indiana if you want it. I said, put that at the top of your list. I want it. You have to commit a felony to be fired, in other words. And I said, I want that, but I also want to be protected from whatever caused me to be called in front of the school board like that. I want the freedom to really teach. I want to be trusted. And he said, you've got it. And I said, what else can I have? And he said, you can have more money, you can have first crack at all the federal grants, you can have books, order whatever you want, do whatever you want. And he said, the school board is bowing at your mercy and saying, please come back. I went back, the guidance continued, and life went on. But what happened next is what caused the book to become an international bestseller. By now, I realize I don't know enough spiritually for what's going on in my life. I'm sending the students out. Go do research on any spiritual things. Go to groups. Listen, go in groups of 3 to keep it safe, but come back and I'll give you extra credit. I'm using them to try and teach me spirituality. And I signed up in my master's degree class at night for comparative world religions, and it became one of the minors of my master's degree. And I'm studying all the religions of the world and going, oh, what Southern Baptist does not allow for a lot of that. The possibilities became amazing. And now it's Christmas Day, and my mother lived on a small island off the coast of South Carolina, where my husband and I currently have a house. Mom's been gone for a while, but she brought this beautiful island into our lives, and it's just incredible. It's magical. So she moved to Hilton Head, and she's there, and it's Christmas, and I want to go see her, and I go down, and it's hot. It's like 85 degrees in December in South Carolina. It's quite warm. The water is cold, but I'm a very strong swimmer, and I thought, I'm going to go swimming. I don't care if the water is cold. I will swim so hard and fast that I'll warm up swimming, and then when I come out, I'll bask in the sun, so it won't matter if it's freezing cold in the water. I'm going. The waves were pretty turbulent. There was quite, the tide was going out, and it was going out pretty strong, but who cares? I'm a strong swimmer. Off I go. But I pose a question. I sit in the sand, and I pose a question to God. And I said, what I have come to feel in my heart is that there is an interconnection between all life, that we are all soul, we are all great spiritual beings, and we're here to fulfill our own highest and greatest destiny, and that we're linked, whether we know it or not. That interconnectedness is something I want to understand. I want to know, is that true? Is that the truth? Little did I know, I had hit on one of the great truths on this planet and in all the universes of God. But I dove in the water. I swam hard and fast as I could. In fact, I can hold my breath a long time. I held my breath as long as I could, came up for another breath, swam, and then suddenly I got the feeling, turn and look at the shore. And I turn and look at the shore, and even as I'm looking at the shore, I can feel myself being pulled out. And if I'm not swimming, I could literally be pulled under. I am in a great pull force in the ocean going out to sea. And the beach is so far away now that I don't even know if I can get back. I've been caught in a riptide. Now I know, because my mom had this house at the beach, that to get out of a riptide, you're not supposed to try and fight it, you're supposed to swim laterally. And so I'm now going to decide, okay, I know how to deal with this. Lots of people are on the beach. Lots of people saw me go in the water. They were looking at me like, wow, you're brave going in that cold water, but they're picking up shells. It's Christmas Day. They're walking. I thought someone will send someone to rescue me if I can't pull it off, but I'll do the lateral swim. So I looked to the right, thinking, which way is the current going so that I'm going to end up back near the beach where I started as much as possible. And then I looked to the right. And about as far away as that wall, there is a shark coming right at me. And I know instantly what has happened. The second rule, besides how to get out of a riptide, is never, ever go where the shrimp boats are. But there's no shrimp boats out here. And the reason there's no shrimp boats is because it's Christmas Day. They're not working. But sharks will come by the shrimp boats. That's why you never go near them. You never go in the water by a shrimp boat, because they come to get the easy prey, right? Whatever is thrown overboard. It's me. So now I change my inner conversation with God. And now all I want is for the hand of God to lift me up by the scruff of my neck, straight in the air. It's only me and a shark out here way, way, way out, right? There's nothing I can do. Does a shark have a soft underbelly? Can you poke it in the eye? Have you ever heard of a story of someone fighting a shark and winning? My heart is pounding out of my chest. It's literally banging like crazy. And I hear a voice say very clearly, very neat and tidy instructions. Lie down on your face. Stretch your arms in front of you and your legs out long and lean as you can. Bob like a log on the surface of the water. Turn away from the shark and do not look. Breathe inwardly. Peace, calm. And I thought, that shark is going to eat me like a French fry stretched out on the surface of the water. But this is no time to test inner guidance, because I hear it again. This shark is close now, and I hear, lie down, flat, on your face, long and lean. And I do it. Just as my face hits the side of the water, and I'm turning away from the shark, I'm hit from underneath. I'm hit hard. It completely takes my breath away. And I remember my immediate thought was, my mother is going to hate this. I can see the headline, daughter eaten on Christmas Day. What a way to go. She is going to hate that. But instead of being pulled down into the ocean where I thought I would be going, I find myself flying. I am in the air, and I seem to be on a platform that is moving fast like a jet ski toward the beach. and I have no idea what's happening. My heart is pounding. I'm thinking somehow the shark has gotten confused. I'm on its back. What's happened? And then I begin to fall. And suddenly I'm hit again from underneath. And my platform rises in front of me, and it's a dolphin. I've been on the back of a dolphin. I'm on the back of another dolphin now. I am lying still, face down, and I am on the back of a dolphin. And I am flying toward the shore. I can't even tell you how fast I'm going. And I realize there is an interconnectedness between all life. I want it to be lifted up. I'm lifted up. I'm flying through the air. And I realized that I knew I was living a metaphor for all life. Life is full of sharks. They're everywhere. It's moments, it's our fears, it's other people and their behaviors, it's our interaction, it's our responses to things. They're all sharks. That's what's going on. There's the peace and bliss of living in the ocean of divine love and mercy, and then you turn around and darn if there's not a shark. And yet how we respond to it is what truly matters, and that's your work. For most of you, that's what you're doing. You're helping people to respond to life with that peace and calm that I was guided to. Now, my heart is still going crazy. I've been pulled out by a riptide, almost attacked by a shark, and carried on the backs of dolphins to the shore. But when they get me into water that's about up to my chest, they don't just leave me as I thought they would, job done, here she is, she's safe, go ahead, walk out, you're back. They surround me. And they do this incredible thing on the back of their tails, and they stand up and surround me in a circle. And they do all the way around me with these voices of rising in the air. I can see that people have all begun to gather right there on the beach. They're watching. And I am looking at the dolphins and spinning around, trying to look at each of them right in the eye and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. But I knew they were doing something to me. They were changing me. Vibration is what everything is about in this world. What vibration are we at? Where do we vibrate? How high or how low? Anger, sorrow, sadness, depression, they all have their wavelengths. Joy is our true nature as soul. It's the high vibration. They were so joyous. They were so unbelievably lighthearted, beautiful. And I felt myself being changed vibrationally by that. But as if they were saying, we will make sure that we do our job right, they took turns, each one of them, and began to touch my body and come and rub against me. And I'm still turning in a circle of now closely knit dolphins, saying, I love you, and thank you, thank you, thank you. Tears are spontaneously pouring out of my face. And still, they were not done. They began to do a choreographed dance that looked for all the world as if you were at some place like Waterworld, and they're going around each other and flipping through the air, but not randomly. They're doing it in unison, like it was some sort of a choreographed pool dance by girls. It's like, what the heck is going on here? What on earth is this? But I was beyond the question. I was simply in bliss, absolute bliss. The people on the shore began to clap and cheer. The dolphins eventually stopped all their dancing and singing and ee-ee-ee-ee, and they backed away in twos on their tail fins. And when they got out a certain distance, then they turned and they left. I shook my way to the shore. No one came in the water until I was right at the edge. And then a woman ran forward and she said, oh my God, that was incredible. Do you work with the dolphins? And I said, no, not at all. Now, I had already decided in my mind quickly, I don't like to think about bad things, and I had decided in my mind what I told her. I said, I got pulled out by a riptide. There's a really strong current out there, and the dolphins rescued me. But an old man in the crowd stepped forward then, gray beard, gray hair. He said, those dolphins saved your life. There was a shark coming right at you, and I saw it. You were about to be eaten on Christmas Day. And I was like, that was exactly what I didn't want to think about. It made me shake all over just hearing him say it. And I said, I am grateful. I know they did save my life. And of course, everybody wanted to talk to me, but I couldn't talk. Tears were just streaming down my face. I said I need to just sit down by myself a sec till I could stop shaking in the sand and warmed up. Then I went and got in my car and I went home. My mom said, how was the beach? But I knew that day had changed my life forever. There's more miraculous stuff going on than we could ever imagine. I knew I had a lot to learn. I began my spiritual studies in earnest, but I had no idea what to believe. And I'm back in the classroom now. It's January. I'm writing on the board, I'm sending the quotes to the research librarian, and I get a letter back. And I open the letter, and it says, we can't find your quotes. We're now a full team looking for them. We've checked Library of Congress, we've checked this, we've checked that, we cannot find them. They all seem to be linked. Do you have any other clues? It had become a game. It had become a game. And I had to write back and say, no, dig deeper. But one day, shortly thereafter, I got a toothache. And a toothache, like one of those stabbing toothaches, like, I gotta go to the dentist right now. It's just, I can't stand it. But I had never missed school, never missed school. I adored being in that classroom. I wouldn't miss it for anything. And now I needed a substitute teacher like 10 minutes ago. So I called down to the front, I need a sub now, I have to leave, I'm making a doctor's appointment, get me somebody quickly. And I continued teaching my class. The sub slips in the back. He's standing there for just a moment, and I am like, oh, please, no, hand, don't do it in front of that stranger teacher. There it goes. Before I can leave the class, my hand feels like it just must write a nice, long paragraph of a quote, going from one board to the next. Substitute teacher raises his hand, and he said, is that a quote? And I said, yes. And he said, where is that from? Do you know where that's from? And I said, no. And I said, not right now. I'll get back to them later with it. And I said, but you can ignore it. And he goes, no, but. And I said, I'm leaving now. You can ignore it. Now, I expected my students to maintain the decorum, which is, don't talk about quickenings and, just, this is a stranger. You don't talk to strangers. I said, I left handouts. Just do the handouts. And I left and I went to the dentist. When I came back the next day, I felt a little suspicious. I'd stood off the school board before, and I have lifetime tenure now, but I don't want to, be messing with some sub who's weirded out by what's going on in my classroom. So I said to my students who I'm talking to in the hallway as I get near my classroom, did he do what I said? Did he do the handouts, that substitute teacher? And they said, no, he didn't. And I said, really, what did he do? And they said, he wanted to talk about you the whole time. I'm like, oh. I said, I hope you guys didn't tell him anything. And, yeah, it was really nice. We told him everything. Like, no, you didn't. What do you mean? And they said, well, we told them about the quickening. And I said, you didn't. You don't know him. And they said, well, he was young. He was really interested. He seemed very open. And I said, oh, for heaven's sakes, I can just hear myself being called to the school board again. And I said, you didn't show him the quotes, did you? The ones that aren't signed, except for the one on the board? And they said, yeah, he wanted to read our journals, so we showed them to him. He was there the last 3 hours, and during yearbook, after school, he even came back. But he liked you. And I said, how do you know that? And they said, he brought you a present. And I said, really? And they said, yeah, it's on your desk. I said, did you see what it is? And they said, no, he sealed it. So I go and I open the gift, and it's a book. And there's a letter with it. And it says, I have heard about things like this before, but I never experienced anything like it. I listened to your students talk about the Inner World Library, and I saw the quote that you wrote on the board last. I think you will find the underlying passages in this book very interesting. So I open the book, flip to the underlying passages, and there's everything that the research librarians can't find. But the book is called Ekankar, Key to Secret Worlds, a spiritual path I had never heard of. I knew nothing about this, but there it is. I have now transcribed up to page 54 of this book, word for word, comma for comma. If the author made a mistake, I made a mistake. It was very interesting. And I said, gosh, I don't know what this is about. And the students were like, well, let's read the rest of the book and maybe we'll find out. And so we began to do that. We read the rest of the book, found it very interesting, continued reading the book, used it as our extracurricular material. But it taught me about the Inner World Library. It taught me about the different planes of existence. It taught me about the physical plane, and then the psychic plane, which is the emotional plane, and then the mental plane, and getting above it, the etheric, the causal, and then the pure positive God worlds, where truly we want our consciousness to dwell while we walk in the physical world. I was delighted. But I thought the author, Paul Twitchell, was like Emerson or Thoreau, wrote some beautiful things and is gone now. And I didn't know it was a path. I had no idea. But I studied the book. I started learning meditation. You know, it took me deeply into all sorts of things. And next, my reputation as a teacher had begun to spread because I was working on the master's degree program. My students were scoring very high. One of my graduates became a rocket scientist at NASA. The other, as I told you, went on to do a great many inventions and held patents, and all sorts of things were happening. And I get an invitation from Indiana University. They want me to come and audit a doctorate. That means I didn't have to pay for it. They just want me to sit in their classes. And I was like, seriously, how cool? Yes, and we'll pay you. You know, you can work under 5 professors and we'll pay you. That's great. Okay, this is the only reason I would quit teaching. This is great. So I go down to Bloomington, just hundreds of miles away from where I left, quit my teaching job, which I loved, but I couldn't refuse this invitation. And I go down there, and they know that there are weird things happening because everybody who knows me now knows, oh wow, there's weird things happening. But nobody really talks about it back then. You know, you didn't talk about that sort of thing. You just sort of acknowledged if you knew with a smile and a shake of your head, and that was about it. And then one day, I'm at the university, but suddenly, as sometimes women are, I'm compelled to buy a new dress right now. I feel like I have to have a dress right now or I'm gonna die. I know exactly where to get it. I want it to be cotton, imported. I know where I'll go. I'll go to Lilla's Imports. They have beautiful scarves, beautiful dresses. I wanna go to Lilla's Imports. So it's pouring rain, but I take a break. I have to get a cab. I don't have an umbrella. The cab lets me out. I dash in to Lilla's Imports. Only there's no dresses, there's no scarves, there's no imports. There's books everywhere. And I said, what are all these books doing here? To the guy who was standing behind a desk. And I said, what happened to Lilla's Imports? What is this place? And he said, this is an Ekankar Center. And I was like, well, I almost strangled the kid. It was a college student, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Tell me what you're talking about. And he's kind of backing away, and I'm like, no, tell me, what do you mean? It's an Ekankar Center. And he goes, it's a spiritual path. I'm new to it, but you know.
He's freaked out.
And he goes, but there's a seminar this weekend if you want to go learn more. I said, okay, where is it? He told me. It's the Holiday Inn in Bloomington. I'm a little late when I arrived because I had to change all my schedule to be there on the weekend. And the doors are already closed, just like they are here. And I know that if I open the door, it's gonna squeak, make noise, and behind me, all this light was pouring in, and I know it's gonna be disruptive in that room. And I kind of tweak the door open a little, and I start listening, and I can't stand it. The draw into that room is so strong that it's like squeak. I open the door. And the person on stage appears to be completely distracted because he stops speaking. So I stand very still in my tracks, trying to close the door quietly behind me. And he says, and the woman that I was telling you about just walked in the door. It's my substitute teacher. I haven't seen him, don't know him, barely met him for the few moments that I told him, don't ask any questions, but it's my substitute teacher. And he's been telling them about my students, the classroom, the quickening. That's what he's telling. He's a speaker, seminar, and I just walked in. I get a standing ovation. It was incredible. I just walked in the door and they start clapping and standing up and I start crying. Because spiritually, we are each being led to the perfect path for us, to exactly what we need next, exactly where we need to go. That is what our inner guidance is really all about. And it's about turning up the volume on it so that it becomes louder and clearer, and we become a very clear vehicle, a very clear channel for that inner guidance that's specific to us so that we can fulfill our highest and greatest potential, our highest and greatest and most beautiful destiny in this lifetime. And it's really all about vibrations. When I was in high school, my dad had died, my mom remarried, he was in the military, and we got stationed in France. It was like a dream come true for a 16-year-old. I live in France, I go to art museums in Paris, oh my gosh. I played, I lived it up with friends, it was fabulous. Then de Gaulle kicked all the American troops out, and I literally got down on my knees and prayed to God, do not send me where my friends are being sent. They're getting orders for places like Iowa, Idaho. I said, don't send me someplace that starts with an I don't want to go. I don't want to go back to the States. I don't want any of this. And we get orders for Germany. And I went off to Germany. And my German high school teacher, he was a professor. And he didn't make a lot of sense. But one thing he kept saying over and over again is everything is vibration. If we only understood that nothing is solid, everything is mutable, it's all changing every moment. If only we could understand. If only we could understand and take control of those vibrations. And I was like, how does that apply to me? I wanted to know. But we know how it applies. Change our thoughts, change our beliefs, everything happens. Open up, ask big universal questions of the divine, and the divine will flow answers to us. Now, I want to end there, really. Many things continue to happen. That's what the book is all about. It's just stories, really, but stories where you will recognize the spiritual principles because you have the background, the ears to hear, and all that because of your work. But I wanted to end with a quote. This is a book, also by Paul Twitchell, the modern-day founder of Eckankar. It's called The Flute of God. And what it really is, it's about all the spiritual laws that are afoot in the universe, because for us to move into being co-workers with God, we need to understand the laws of the universe, like the law of attraction, but also the the law of love, which supersedes all laws. It's the greatest love of all. The greatest law of all is the law of love. I want to end here because I know you believe this, and I think that it's so uplifting. Paul writes, "There should be no consideration of outward conditions, whether body or circumstance, for they are only effects and not cause. Instead, we should use the method of self-contemplation, knowing it to be the creative mode. We contemplate ourselves as allied to the infinite love and wisdom of divine spirit. And we learn to act creatively as a special providence, knowing that we are entirely guided, guarded, provided for, and illuminated. The principle is love. When we are reunited to divine spirit in mutual confidence and understand that our nature is love, what room is there for any remembrance of a yesterday of sorrow? For we have passed beyond the veil into the originating spirit. We are one with the infinite. We act as the source of its perfect works, the source of love upon this plane of the universe. Thank you so much.
Ann Archer Butcher. And on behalf of the International Hypnosis Federation, we give you an award of excellence for enlightenment because she's hypnotizing the world through her writing to learn the truth. Thank you.